Geeta Cheba. I was born on January 18th, 1956 in Bombay, India. And childhood memories. Basically, it was a very carefree living, going to school, coming home, playing with friends in the evening, going out with parents to different places on the weekends. Sometimes Dad would take us to the beach. Sometimes we would go out for picnics. Sometimes we would go and watch shows. Sometimes go to the museum. Things like that. And of course, on our summer vacations, Dad would take us to a different place every year, where we would go sometimes to the deep south of India, or we would go to the east, like in Calcutta, or our favorite place Dad would take us every year was to the mountains, to the cold place in Kashmir. And Kashmir was our favorite place that other than visiting other places, Kashmir was a must go to place. Other than that, just a basic childhood,
It sounds like your family, would you say middle class, or would you say that you were very fortunate, maybe in that upper class?
I would
almost?
call it middle class, but I know that even amongst our friends, we were able to have a better living. Although the place where we lived in was not a very modern place, we were in the midst of leaving, going to buying a better place, but because that was our own property, we kept on staying there. We were able to afford a lot more things that normally people of our caliber or of our same lifestyle, we were able to afford a lot more things than our friends could or our relatives could. Like traveling back then, 60 years ago, was not a very common thing. But Dad took us everywhere, because he wanted us to. He was fond of traveling, so that got us into that. Okay, where are we going next year? Where are we traveling next year? So
what was the family vehicle?
Family vehicle was an old Jeep, a military Jeep that Dad had bought from, I don't know if it was an auction, I don't remember. And it was one of those vehicles that was purchased from the army. Yeah, wow. That served him well for his business, and it took us around wherever we wanted to go.
Yeah. So you were the middle of three children.
I was the middle of three children, yes.
Was that a fairly small family compared to some of the others?
That was about an average in those days, whereas, we would hear that, our grandparents were, they would have 6 siblings or, 8, 10, 12 was very common for our grandparents' time. But for our time and living in the city, 3 was a good number. Yeah.
And so, what was your older brother like? Was he quite protective of you, or did he tease you a lot, or what was the family dynamic like?
Family dynamic was that he was a little on the shy side, and so and also culturally, like you are supposed to take care of your sister, respect her, protect her, and so it was that, but it was also fun. I really don't remember too much of that, but the one thing I do remember was that he was very protective of us. So.
And so your younger sister?
My younger sister, yes, we did do a few things together growing up, but when we were younger, she was 6 years younger to me. So growing up as little kids, I don't remember too much, but once we came to Canada, we did a lot of things together, like going out on the weekends, going out to restaurants, or going to, say, clubs, or going to parties, which weren't too many, but whatever we did, we mostly did it together.
Would you say that your parents were fairly strict?
Oh God, super strict. Super strict.
Did you get in a lot of trouble?
No. I didn't get into a lot of trouble because I was a very obedient child. I knew what wasn't expected of me, but sometimes I would, get a talking to. Oh, you weren't supposed to do this. That guy was looking at you. Why did you behave that way? You should have looked the other way. I don't, basically very, very strict. So once my father passed away after coming to Canada in 1974, I automatically I put restrictions on myself because I didn't want to disappoint my mother in any way. So it was whatever was done as a family. My mom was very very aware that we needed some sort of entertainment, so she would have get-togethers at home, or we would go out, things like that. So that was our basic growing up.
It sounded like in India, things were going quite well. You had a relatively happy family. You went on vacations. You were blessed in ways that maybe some of the other families weren't. Were your parents unhappy in India, or what were some of the factors that led to them looking elsewhere and perhaps coming to Canada?
In fact, I would say that would be very close to the peak of my dad's career, and he was doing extremely well. We were going to be in the next phase of our life, like moving into a very good neighborhood, buying a car, whereas in those days cars were not everybody had a car, just a few handfuls would have a car. So we were very happy, and but after many years of being out west, my cousin visited India, and which was a surprise, and he visited a few times, mainly for business purposes, and that brought my family and my cousin close together even more, and he wanted that we all move out to Canada and live together and have business together. So that's what brought us to Canada. In fact, after coming to Canada, my dad wasn't very happy because when you're at the peak of your career at the age of 42 and you have to kind of start at the bottom, it's not fun. But so.
What did he do in India?
He was a contractor for the government, where he would get contracts for laying big, huge sewage pipes in the city, and that was his main work. He did that for many years.
And so, is it safe to say that in some ways he might have regretted coming to Canada?
I would say so. Because he was kind of given the rosy picture that, we would all stay together as a family, we would work together as a family, but that was not the line of work that my dad was into. So he was wanting to kind of get into his own field, but that was very hard. That was hard.
And sadly, health problems came very shortly after coming to Canada.
Dad had health problems even before coming to Canada. I would say probably at the age of about 36, he had a heart attack, and so he was a heart patient all these years. And 2 years after coming to Canada, he passed away. And that was a big blow to the family, a big challenge to do things ourselves, and being in a new country without much help. Not that my mom was not the kind of person who would want help, although a lot of friends were willing to help, but my mom wanted to do things on her own.
And 3 children must have been extremely difficult.
It was difficult, but we also pitched in. Myself, I went to school. I'd have summer jobs. I'd have part-time jobs working in a restaurant called the Kmart at that time. My brother also worked and went to school. And my sister was young, but she was really determined. She would want to dress up older than her age and go out for interviews, and surprisingly, she got a good job wherever she went. Yeah. She was really determined.
Right.
And my mom was something else. She would work 15, 16, maybe even more every day. She had good education, but that education did not carry any weight here in Canada. But she knew how to sew. So when she came to Canada, my cousins who had clothing stores, she would work for them. Eventually, she would make custom outfits for band groups and do sew for them, do different type of outfits that weren't made by factories, but she would make them. And she would also part-time babysit, and we managed. We did well.
Although what a work ethic. I don't think there's people quite like that these days that would have that many
She's
things
still
happen.
like that these days. I 2 years ago, I was detected with cancer, and she came down to help me, and she stayed with me for 2 years to help me out. She just turned 88 a month ago, and the determination that she has is beyond words. At that age, if she can do so much, take care of the family, and look after herself, is very exemplary.
Wow.
Very exemplary. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That actually is something I look back and I go, did that really happen? But I was living in Canada. I was in Canada for about 8 years before I went to India. And while I was in Canada, we did have some friends approach us. Oh, we have this young man who'd be a good match for me. But I met a couple of them, but things didn't click. And my uncle, back then, there were two things that was very common. The most common thing was friends and relatives would bring a proposal and say, okay, this is either a family member or a friend's son who would be a good match for your daughter, and living in Canada, that was very hard. So before I went to India, my uncle put an ad in the newspaper that, we're looking for a person for me, and got all the correspondence together and went through all of them, and whatever few that, or quite a few that he thought was a good match, went through all of them, and then asked me to come down to India. Me and my mom, we went and met quite a few boys, but nothing clicked. And then he asked us to come to Chandigarh, which was the city where he was living in, and that's where my husband is from. And once we met, we clicked, and we got married within a week. So
unbelievable. In your culture, is that common, or did even your relatives say, slow down?
No. Especially for anybody going from the West to India to get married. And even to this day, a few people do go back to get married, because the time is so limited that you want to work fast on it, so that there's enough time to get married and stay for a bit with your husband, come back, and then apply for immigration and all that. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't very unusual, but it was quite heard of in those days that maybe a week was short, but usually people would get married within about 3 to 4 weeks or so, but I think mine was a little too fast.
These days, a lot of couples, they date for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and then they get engaged. And from the time they meet to the time they're actually married, sometimes it could be 5, 7, 10 years. And even then, oftentimes they get divorced. What would your advice be to anyone as far as staying committed and in a situation like that? Because, these days what you have seems rare.
What I would say, and no marriage is easy, whether it's in the present day or whether it was, I've been married almost 40 years. Things are never easy, especially the first few months or the first couple of years. It's not easy. In my case, I felt that my husband coming to Canada, although now when I look back, we weren't that well settled, but we were settled enough where we had a decent small home, we had a car, we had jobs, and we were okay. But coming from India was a big shock to my husband. And again, he had a very good career in India as well. And when you come to Canada, nowadays things are a little different. But back in those days, or any new immigrant basically has to start at the bottom. and that's a very big shock. That also puts a lot of pressure on the marriage. And so you really have to work through that. You really, really have to work through that.
How accepting was your family to him? Did they like him immediately, or was there a bit of
he has a wonderful personality.
Good.
But he was also very tense when he first came. And that, not that it put pressure on them, but they hoped that they could ease his pressure in some way. But he wanted to do things on his own, and fortunately he did have some entry-level jobs in the first couple of months, but then he was very fortunate to get a very good job with a consulting company just a few months after he came to Canada, and life was okay. Again, it was basic living. Almost within a year of us getting married, my daughter was born. In fact, my daughter was 2 months old when my husband first came to Canada.
Wow.
And so it was again that pressure for him when he first came. Pressure of a family was a big thing, and pressure of him to provide for the family was a big thing. So,
but when Shika arrived, that must have been extremely exciting. Were you always hoping to be a mom? Was that one of your ambitions and goals in life? And was that just kind of one of the things that you just always wanted?
Shika was born. Every lady wants to be a mom. For some, it happens sooner, which happened in my case. And I was living with my mom when my husband first arrived. We lived with my mom, I think, for about two months or so, and then moved out. When Shika arrived, it was very exciting. The family just thought it was the best thing on this earth that could have happened to the family. Especially after my dad's death, there was a lot of sadness in the house. And when Shika arrived, that was a joyous celebration time.
Yeah. And the first of four. So how quickly did the other three arrive after the oldest?
Shika and my son, my second born, Vivek, they are about 16 months apart. So family grew fast. Family grew fast. And my third one was born 5 years after I got married. So yeah, and the last one, I have 4 kids, 3 girls and 1 boy. And my youngest one, who is 30 years old right now, was born in 1989, and which was 9 years after I got married. So within the first 9 years of our marriage, we had 4 kids. There must have been stresses. We lived a very basic life, and yet we always tried to be progressive also in our life. My husband had a good job. He was very ambitious and provided well for the family. And once the kids grew up, my husband's mom, my mother-in-law, she came and lived with us, and she took care of the kids, and we could both work. And once we both worked, we did even well.
Talk a little bit about culture and passing it on to the children, and how important that is to you. Because, I mean, when you come to a new country, you know, there's all kinds of other influences. How important was it to you to continue to pass on the family traditions and customs and culture?
Oh, coming to a new, having a new family and passing on the culture to the kids, to me, because I had the basic culture, and culture to me is having a nuclear family, being together as a family, and being together as a family, and looking out for one another, helping one another out, and that is the basic culture. Sorry, I'm
That's
forgetting
okay.
things here.
What are some of the cultural important days that culturally your family recognizes and are really important to you?
India has a lot of festivals, a lot of days that are recognized, but living in this country, it is a little hard. Although if I really want to, it's not, first of all, it's not the same as what it is in India. And being a young teenager coming to this country, I lost touch of that culture as well. And my mom was a very basic person who had faith in God, who practiced religion in her own way, but she didn't impose too many things on us. So what we got from our grandparents, my parents, was the basics of life, respecting our elders, taking care of them. My mother-in-law lived with us for many years, and towards the end it was a challenge, because she had dementia. She wasn't safe being around herself, but we did not want to put her in a nursing home. We hired some help in the house to take care of her, rather than put her in a nursing home. So what I would like to pass on to the kids is basically stay together as a family, and respect one another no matter what, which I am very proud to say that all my kids are married, all have their spouses, and we are one exemplary family in the sense how close we are. The kids are very close to each other. My kids live in Red Deer, and they visit us every single weekend. During the week, we'll go and visit them, because me and my husband are both retired now. So that is what culture teaches, a lot of things, but the basic culture starts in the home, where you stick together, love one another, watch out for each other's back, and to me that's very important. Oh, I still love to cook, even though it's just me and my husband. Not that I cook a lot, but I love to cook. I used to cook a lot, starting from when I got married. Back then, we do eat a lot of Western and international foods, but our basic food is our Indian food. which we really enjoy. The kids enjoy. And many years ago, when I first started a family and coming to Calgary, there wasn't a lot available ready-made, so we would all have to make things ourselves. From the basic cooking to the fancy cooking was all done at home. Friends would help, or we would exchange recipes, and we would have big, huge parties, keep our kids busy, and kids entertained. So cooking was all done at home.
What are some of the dishes that you enjoy personally that you just love to eat?
Oh, God. Back then, I would love to cook Italian, I'd cook Chinese, I'd cook a lot of Indian, I'd make other Western meals, but and I would try a lot of fancy dishes as well, and I would be considered as one of the best cooks in the cities amongst our friend circle. That's what they claim, and to me, yeah, it was good. It tasted good, and that's what mattered. It didn't let it get to my head, but I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy, although the major cooking happens for the kids when they come home on the weekends now, whereas for ourselves, it's just very basic now.
So, have you had much of an opportunity to go back to India and maybe see your hometown and whatnot?
I haven't gone back to Bombay.
Never.
I've been here since 1972 in Canada. I think the main reason was because all our relatives lived in the northern part of India, in Punjab and New Delhi, in that surrounding areas. So the very first time I went to India was in 1980 when I went to get married, which was 8 years after coming to Canada. And then I got married, had children, and never had the opportunity to go back for various reasons. It was very expensive to go, and secondly, with the kids, when we could afford somewhat, the kids were in school, and the best time to go to India would be in the summertime, and in the summertime it's very hot, and we are not used to the heat anymore, so that kept us from going. So the very first time after getting married and going to India was in 1998, I would say, when my oldest daughter Shikha, after she finished high school, we sent her to India for her dentistry studies. So that was the very first time, and after that it was quite frequent that we would go and visit her, and she would come, and it was more affordable. It was also, I was in business then, so I didn't have I could leave at any time. So it was easier to go then, and since 1998 I've had quite a few visits.
Okay, good. Yeah. You have 4 highly achieving children, and they're all very successful in their own individual way. Did you really push them and drive them to excellence, or did they just see the work ethic of their parents or grandparents? Like, where did they get that?
I don't know what it was. My husband, of course, would, always say, do your best, you can do better, but never in a pushing way. What I felt, of course, we had good work ethics too. what I felt was when my kids were younger, we also enrolled them in competitive swimming, which took up a lot of their time. Training took up a lot of time, and then competitions on the weekend took up a lot of time. And maybe because of that or whatever, it kept the kids very organized, and they managed their time well. They did good in school, and we were just happy that they did good in school. Mm-hmm. So, and as they grew up, I think they were at the point where they were self-driven. We didn't have to push them to do well or whatever. In fact, my son was always a very naughty type of kid. Vivek was a naughty type of kid, and when he graduated high school, we grew up with measuring everything by marks. Okay, what percentage marks did you get in school? Whereas coming to Canada, and when the kids were in school, they did not get the marks. They just got a basic description of how well or how not well they did in school. So to us, it sounded okay, but we would still rather see marks to measure how well they did in school. Mm-hmm. And then when my son got scholarship, the Millennial Scholarship, which was given to very few kids, that opened up my eyes, and I thought, oh, okay, he did do well in school, so.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to say, I am enjoying my grandkids very much, very much. I find kids are really unique. I find each one of my grandkids very unique. Starting from my oldest one, who's 8 years old, I find her to be very mature. I find her to be very wise. And I think I also learned from her, because of the way she says things, the way she does things. I think I do learn from her, The next, her little sister is a challenge to my daughter. But she's also very unique in her own way. Challenge in the sense that she demands more time, and that's what I mean by challenge. But they all are our lifeline. They are our purpose now, to live, to enjoy them. We did enjoy our kids, but we are enjoying our grandkids a lot more.
Now, they're going to be watching this when they're in their teens and they're in their 20s, and you may not be around then to talk to them. What advice would you give them on how to be successful and how to be happy in life?
I would like them to be disciplined in whatever they do. The one thing that my husband always taught the kids was, whatever you start, finish it. Whether you do well in it or you don't do well, you have to finish the task that you've started. And so that is discipline, right? And work hard. Mm-hmm. Nothing comes easy. Like my one my motto, not my motto, but one thing I heard many years ago was, life is not as difficult as you think it is, but it's not as easy as you want it to be. So in anything that you have to be successful in, you have to put in your hard work. So I would like my grandkids to work hard, to enjoy what they do, and do their best in whatever they've started to do, and explore a lot of different options, explore whatever comes their way, so that they don't grow up saying, oh, you know what, I never did this when I was a kid. But now when our kids were growing up, we, to our capability, we tried to give them the best that we could. These days kids have a lot, and I'm sometimes afraid that if they have a lot, they may not appreciate the things they have. When we were growing up, because of our circumstances, we had to work hard, and that hard work habit stayed on up to this day. And I wish the grandkids can do that too, work hard and enjoy what they do.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of honesty in your life?
Oh my God. Honesty is our number one priority in life, starting from my husband to the youngest children, to all the children. Honesty, I find, is very important. The kids have now been working on their own, and while working, they've had people tell them how to make a quick buck, but they don't want to do that, because they say they want to have a good night's sleep at the end of the night and sleep with a clear conscience. So honesty is very important. Hard work is also very important, and a combination of these two things will obviously bring success. You may not be everything, but you will do well with what you do. It's funny what I went through in the last few years, because when my kids were younger and I was a working mom, I'd get very tired with 4 kids and their activities, and I did have my my mother-in-law, who would help out taking care of the kids, cooking wise too. It was a big help, but it was still a lot of work. I didn't have nanny at that time, no cleaning lady, everything was done by ourselves. So I'd get tired, and I wish that, what if I fall sick? I could stay home and, get some rest or whatever. But luckily that didn't happen, and now that I'm sick, I've had to take a lot of time off work, and now sell my business and take care of myself. Health challenges can come to anybody at any time. Mine happened to be cancer, which I've just been diagnosed with cancer again, that was supposedly gone for the last 4 times. Now it's come back for the 5th time. And I'm dealing with it in the sense that it's not easy. physically going through everything is not easy, but you have to say, I'm the only one who has to face this. My family can help, but physically, mentally, I am the one who has to face my problem and be strong enough to accept it. I've accepted what I've got, and all I ask God is for strength that I get through this time. This last time when I was just diagnosed, that was the biggest blow, other than the very first time that I was diagnosed. But then again, you have to gather yourself together. Prayers help a lot. Every night I pray. Prayers help a lot. And getting the strength from within is the biggest help. That you have to be strong for yourself. Nobody else can have that strength for you. I have to get it from myself.
Mm-hmm. What do you, after you're gone, what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to say about you? How would you like to be remembered?
What I would like is, I wouldn't want people to remember in any bad way, and I hope they won't, because I've never had any bad relations with anybody, whether it be family or friends. I've never had bad relations. So I would like to be remembered in a good way, that oh, she was a good friend, I was a good mother, a good wife. That's how I'd like to be remembered.
You'd like people to look back and smile and laugh and remember all the good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final messages that you'd like to send to your great-great-grandchildren and beyond? Feel free to look at the camera and just...
I would like to say family is the best thing anybody can have. So treasure the family. There's always challenges in a family. No family is perfect, but work through your problems. Never give up on each other, because when you give up, you get weak. But when you work through the problems, you get stronger. बच्चों, फैमिली बड़ी इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है. प्यार नाल रहो, इकट्ठे मिल के रहो, एक दूसरे दे नाल एक दूजे दी हेल्प करो. यही सब तो वड्डी चीज़ है इन लाइफ. और किसी नाल जेलसी नहीं करनी, किसी नाल गुस्सा नहीं करना. प्यार 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 ही सब कुछ है. और जितने प्यार नाल रहोगे उतना ज़्यादा फन हैगा in life. I would like to say it in English so the kids understand it even more. A lot of times we look for happiness outside the family, with friends, basically with friends and other associates. But when you have a good family, the happiness that you get within the family, you can rarely find it outside the family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How did she do? Are you proud of how she did?
Oh yeah, she's wonderful. She could express very well. Yes. Original, natural, real.
What would you like to say to the grandkids that are watching this and seeing grandma or great grandma?
I think it's a basic, it makes your, like sometimes we lose basic things in our life and we have to stress and or just understand the basics in life. I give you a little example. I don't know if it's appropriate or not. When we were doing our business, Subway business, I always stressed on the basic things. Don't do the huge marketing. Basics, happy employees, fresh food, cleanliness. So I always go for, even in an exam, where we fail is on the small things. We remember the tough things, but we miss on or fail on the small things. So make your basics strong. Yes.
How are you staying strong through a challenging time like this? How are you doing?
This is reality, and I'm not the first person on this earth to have it. It was happening. It is happening. It will keep happening, and we have to accept it this way. And it's a journey. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's tough, and I think we will do good in this journey.
He is very emotional about this, but also he's very practical and tries to stay strong, but inside he's a softie.